Welcome to DarkLion Collective. This is going to be our first video and hopefully a long series that will expand on several topics with politics, philosophy, technology, social issues, things of that nature. There's four of us right now. There's myself. We also have Aaron, Chris, and Jaysin. And we're just a bunch of guys who, some of us have met online, some of us have known each other for a bit, and we're, decent at talking about things. So the first thing we're going to talk about this week, actually, is Carson coming out Sunday, on Meet the Press, and said basically, a Muslim could not be president. At which point there was a huge uproar over the litmus test, which is Article 6, Paragraph 3 of the Constitution. And basically the outcry in the opposition was saying constitutionally there is no religious litmus test for any office, any elected office. So Carson came out later on and said, that's not what I mean, and they can still run, I just won't vote for them. And I honestly think that that's probably what he was trying to say, but again, he's not a politician, he's a doctor. Plenty of times we've said things one way and it come out, it means something else. But I'd like to actually get a couple of your guys' opinion on this. I actually think that a Muslim would have an extremely tough job getting elected, but I don't think that they should be barred from it. Do you think that somebody's religion should err on them being able to run for office?
I kind of want to start with just saying I don't think that's what Ben Carson was trying to say. I think he said what he wanted to say. I think right before he stated that a Muslim shouldn't be president, he also said that they asked him, do you think religion should play a part of the political process and what people think of you? And he then stated, well, it depends on your religion. So if you're a Christian or you're a Catholic to him, then he thinks it shouldn't matter at all. But if you're a Muslim, apparently that should be a horrible thing that people shouldn't condone or vote for. And all I think that does is continue to create a bad atmosphere for Muslim people in this country, because Muslim people here, most Muslims have no issue with America. Don't want to bomb America, don't want to blow it up. Of course, there's a small sect of people who do those things, but that's in almost every single group around the world and every single religion as well. So for most Muslims, it's been hard enough to get readjusted after being attacked in this country, and to say those kinds of things and promote those types of ideals, I think does nothing but harm them even more.
Okay, Chris?
I understand that Carson's not a politician, he's a surgeon, but the thing is, it's stuff like this that is not going to get him elected. I mean, he's not going to be the runner, because flat out, because he's done this twice. He's been asked a question, he responded to that question, and then he had to come back and correct what he said. And so for him to have to backtrack, adjust what he said because he couldn't say it right the first time. He's very chill, he's very casual, his demeanor, but he was asked a question a while back about the actual state of religion and whether or not that should factor in at all. Should the church have a part in legal processes? And his response to it was well, it depends on the situation. And they're no, that's not how it works. I mean, if you have your beliefs, you keep that in your building. That doesn't mean that you apply that to everything universally. And so when he's asked a question about Muslims, I think that part of it is true that he wouldn't vote for one because he's uncomfortable with the idea. But I don't think necessarily that he is so ignorant towards the idea of there being a Muslim president that no one could possibly run or should be allowed to run. We have religious freedom in this country. So my thing is, if you come from another country and you try and run and you're a Muslim, no, because you weren't born here. That's one of the rules.
Yeah, one of the rules.
You have to be born here. But if you're born here, then religious freedom and religious liberty, which is again something even the Pope coming here is complain about. But we'll talk about him later. But I don't disagree with there being a Muslim president. but I do have an issue with like religion as part of politics in the first place, because then people are voting for someone who they assume, if I just say like, well, I'm a Catholic and I'm running for president, 1.2 billion Catholics in the world, so, and it's one of the main religions in the world, Christian or not, that is. So, well, he's a Catholic, and I'm a Catholic man. I mean, like that can be enough for someone to just say, like, I'll vote for him because, like, well, if you're Catholic, you believe in God, you obviously don't agree with abortion, that Catholic must be Republican. I mean, like, people just draw conclusions off of one idea. So your religious standing should not affect the way that you run for office, because what your policies are about, the changes that you're trying to make, and the way that you're trying to direct the country should speak of your religious alliance in the first place. And even if it doesn't matter, because you're making the stance of, this is what I'm about politically, and this is what I'm about that applies to the job, not what I do in church, which does not apply or should not dictate the way that everyone has to deal with, their country being run, because everyone should do that.
Well, then a follow-up question to that, Chris, and then to you, Jaysin. Do you believe that a person's religion does influence their decisions, whether it's day to day for this country, or in their own personal lives? Or do you think that a politician, president, should leave his religious beliefs, at home while he is in the Oval Office?
Yes to both, because I think that and I firmly believe that, I'm a Christian, and whether or not the guy is in office is Christian or not, that is irrelevant to me, because the decisions he makes need to be in the the best interest of the nation as a whole. Now, if you are, a very casual believer in whatever it is, you hit up church on, Christmas and Easter, and that's, your religion, that's the way you practice it, you're not really too devout in your beliefs. If you believe that in your personal life, I believe that will be reflected, and then you'll just be, a more well-rounded person overall, because you should, like most religions, base the teaching off of, be the best version of yourself that you can be. And since you aren't really the best version of yourself, because the standards are so high, you're constantly striving to improve yourself, which is what everyone should be doing. Public servants, people at the grocery store, wherever you are in life, you should be constantly working to improve. And so, I think everyone should have a faith or something they believe in, even if you don't believe in anything. Have something that you're all about.
Still a belief.
You have something that drives you. But as far as I feel like everyone throws out the religious coin in their presidential run or in politics to win that group over, because that's what they align with. So, if you do believe in God, chances are you're really hardcore, and which is not a bad thing, but you just align with Republicans, and that's where you're at. And if you're more about, well, I'm just, the environment, man, and free love and all that, well, then you're probably more Democrat. Not that everyone's like that, but people are more not so focused on specific issues that lean in one party. I don't think that your religion should play a part in your pursuit to improve the country, but I do believe that what you are convicted by in your beliefs should be reflected in your character and how you approach a situation, but not be the criteria in which you base whether or not you are qualified for that position, if that makes sense. Yeah. Aaron, what's your... Jaysin, I'm sorry.
Well, I agree with both of you, actually, and in fact, I have a few stats that are pretty important when you think about this whole subject. Islam is currently the third largest religion in America. Rising very rapidly. It comes behind Christianity, including Catholic, and Judaism. According to a PewForum that was done, I think, in 2014, in 2007, there was a 0.4% of Americans were estimated to be Muslims, and it increased by 0.5% to 0.9% in 2014. Another PewForum report says that as of 2010, Christianity had an estimated 2.2 followers, and Islam had 1.6 billion. However, Islam is expected to keep growing at a little more than 2 times the rate of Christianity. As a result, by 2050, it's estimated that there would be 2.8 billion Muslims and 2.9 billion Christians. Also, by 2050, it is expected that Muslims will make up 2.1% of our population in the U.S. So, for him to say that there needs to be a litmus test, or that, that he doesn't think a Muslim should run, he would disenfranchise and discourage a whole section of Americans that's very vital to America because we are a melting pot. And if we say to a group of people, sorry, you can't run because you're X, Y, Z, then eventually we're just gonna fall back into like a monarchy or something where there's only a set group of people who can run, and it's just gonna be ridiculous.
Aren't we already there with like the Clintons and the Bushes? Like running
True, very true. We'll end up with more dynasties.
It's just weird to me. It's probably kind of racist-ish to say, but it surprises me that Ben Carson being, Black American
would exclude someone.
White people are usually the ones who are protested or not protested, like portrayed or like the face of modern racism. Like, well, we're a black guy, and goddamn Obama. I mean, people get really upset over there being a black guy. So, like you would think that. At least from his perspective, in any kind of, because he's older than we are.
Yeah.
So he definitely incurred like more of the hardcore racism.
I'm pretty sure he was probably still around. Yeah, segregation and stuff like that.
I mean,
yes.
He's up there in age. It's interesting to me for him to kind of see like I get that there's the terrorist stuff, 9/11 and all that, but that was, never forget whenever it was a while back. And we are an incredibly racist country by trade, but like it just amazed me that he had that like that.
And I didn't want to say that though. That was the point I was going to make. But Ben Carson, like to be a black man and to say that a particular group of people shouldn't be able to run, they said the same thing about black people back in the day. Like even when Obama was running, everyone was like, dude, no way a black guy can win. Even black people were like, dude, I don't really think a black man could win because we didn't think we had progressed that far. But to say that that's not an option at all, it definitely hurts not only the Muslim movement, but it just disenfranchises people, which is something you never want to do in the democratic process.
Another problem with it is, with him being an African American, is that the African slaves, when they were brought over here, 10% of them were Muslims. So we actually brought the Islamic faith to this country. So for him to say that, it's just like you forgot where you came from.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Ben Carson's an Islamic radical.
I'm pretty sure.
He doesn't think they should because he's the one running.
What else are you thinking though?
Well, here's the thing. I understand how, kind of to Chris's point, yes, you're going to not feel as well voting for somebody who holds a different set of beliefs or moral values. That, we more opt to vote closer to you, of course. But when it comes to being able to stand up and say, no, this is a Christian country, only Christians can run. That does exclude a lot of people, not just Muslims, not just Buddhists, a lot of people. I couldn't run because I'm agnostic, I think Chris could run, but that'd be it. So again, like you guys were saying, we'll get back to only certain families could run. The Kennedys, the Clintons, the Bushes. We do have political families out there, but to bar new ideas and diversity of perspective is just a recipe for disaster and stagnation.
Exactly.
And that last part is what really stands out and resonates with me, stagnation. We've already become quite stagnant when it comes to diversity in this country. And yeah, we may be coming up with new technologies here and there, but when it comes to new jobs and making whole new fields and really like being a diverse and understanding people, when you become stagnant, you don't understand other people because you've never been around them before. So how could you relate to someone if you've never met someone of that type before? So I think that does nothing but breed pockets of hatred that is allowed to continue to fester and become more and more hatred because the pool's so stagnant. There's no really cross, movement. There's no flow or current that keeps things fresh, which is goes straight into nature, which is true.
Any other?
Yeah. Anything else that you wanted to talk about on that topic, Brandon?
No, that's about it. One other thing I might mention is when the only oath you ever have to take is an oath to the Constitution and to the people of this country. when people say, "So help me God," that is actually not a requirement, a part of the oath. So you have, if you need the help, ask for it. That's great. But the uproar that would happen if
You didn't say.
if you didn't say it, if the president was being sworn into office and did not say, "So help me God," he would be called to be impeached the next day by the uproar that would come out of the right wing.
They did that on Fox News. Like, they counted how many times Obama said, "Oh God," or "in God's name," or, "thanks God," or anything like that in his speeches. And they're like, "Oh, it's remarkably lower than everyone else." If you're a politician, you're here for the people. Yes, I agree with having some kind of faith of some sort does help you stay strict and staunch to your beliefs, and that's kind of a good thing, because you don't want a president that's going to be wishy-washy, that just changes on a whim just because whatever is popular is going to get him more votes and more attention, so he should do it. But to just say that if you don't say God, you don't believe in something, or you don't have strong convictions, I think that's where the issue starts, and it'll continue to faster if you focus on simple things like how many times did somebody say God in the speech? What was in the speech? That's what's most important.
Exactly. And I think another thing is, if we start testing for religion,
What else? Where does it stop? Yeah.
Like, you could literally test for everything.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want a president who has cancer. I don't want a president who's part of the LGBT.
Who has cancer?
I'm just saying, it could be like non-terminal cancer, but
Right.
Or I don't want a president who's been married more than one time. Like,
it goes against my religious beliefs.
Yeah, which is valid, but at the same time, I mean, because like things like that apply to even like when you get a job, for example. Like if you go in somewhere and if they find out at all that you've been married 3 times, that says you have a problem with commitment. You have a problem with sticking to something and working through a situation, working through it. I think like
that's an assumption, in my opinion.
It is an assumption, but that's how people perceive that. Like that is like you communicate something when you say that to someone, whether they're looking for the bad or not. Are you saying that you would be casual the way you would like a president? Like someone to lead the country and deal with other nations' leaders. I mean, like if you had one guy who's been married for 20 years, or you've had a guy who's been divorced 3 times. The guy who's been married 1 time looks better. Just on that one idea. I'm not saying that he is the better option.
It's probably a bit crazy.
That will piss people off. That will instill doubt in someone.
And that's a part of politics as well. Like, a president has to look a certain way. A president has to be perceived a certain way. So that goes to his perception and how people see him around the world. And I would agree that is important. But to start making you have to be this particular thing to be president, that's where he's suggesting we kind of head to.
Yeah, right.
And that's where, we cannot go that way and have a proper democracy.
But that's all I had on Ben Carson this week. We'll see what he says. Sunday. But no, and honestly, I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't think that anybody running for office, Democrat or Republican, is out to try and destroy this country. They think they have the right ideas and the best ideas, and they're trying to get those out there. Now, all that stands except for Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz is crazy. Ted Cruz is crazy.
Ted Cruz is the Muslim.
He's the one no one to vote for. I swear.
He's trying to kill us.
All right, go